Hey, everybody. I believe we are live here, Friday Live with Client Hub. My name is Judy McCarthy. I'm your host for today and probably every other week that we're here. But I want to welcome you and thank you for joining us here on, Friday, April 16th, the day after estimated tax payment day. So for those of you in the accounting profession, I know exactly, you know what I mean. So again, thanks for joining me today. The topic that I'm going to talk about is how to develop an effective and efficient client communication strategy and why that's really important for your firm and your clients. It's not just about you. It's got to be just as much about them. So give me a moment here. I want to make sure I have my phone silent. I do have my phone silent. Thanks. So, I have to say that when I started my firm back about 1998, I didn't really think much about it. But back in 1998, really dating myself, we look at it and communications were pretty simple by then. We usually picked up the phone. By the way, it probably had a cord on it. We picked up the phone, we called our clients, we met with them in person, or we even, maybe sent a fax. Can you imagine that, a fax? Very few of my clients actually used email back then. Email was a real game changer for us communication-wise. It allowed us to have communication in a written format that wasn't a fax, and then we could have, email threads, which made it really easy to kind of follow what was going on. And we could have multiple people included in that communication, which was really critical. That it wouldn't be an email to just me, but maybe me and my business partner or members of my staff. So, fast forward a lot of years, I was going to say like 22 years. And, we look at communication strategies and we look at email and think, oh my goodness, who wants to open their email in the morning? Absolutely nobody wants to open their email. I know my inbox used to be crazy. I think I would look at it and it would have, I would look at the number of unread messages there and it was in the hundreds, if not more. And we kind of used email as a way to manage our workflow. So, and by the way, I want to say hi to folks that are kind of chiming in before I keep going on. So Jonathan, thank you. Good to see you. Cheryl, you as well. Yes, I know it's snowing up in Massachusetts, so it's not snowing here in Florida. Anyhow, so thanks for joining me again. So back about, talking about that communication strategy. And, we fast forward, we've got these cluttered inboxes. We have not just messages from important people, but we have spam coming in and we have advertisements, and every app partner that you have is sending you something. Client Hub, we try not to. We try to be pretty, careful about what we send to you so we don't clutter up your inbox. Hence, Client Hub, we don't want to do that. So let me dive in and talk about what is a communication strategy and why is it so important for your firm and your clients. So, it's policy within your organization, and you develop policies for everything else about how you do the work, but you don't think about how we're going to gather that information or how are we going to communicate with our clients. So it's going to be the policy in your organization that determines, number one, what methods or channels are you going to use to communicate with your clients? And those could be email, text messaging. It could be something like Slack or, another chat option. It could be Client Hub or another client portal. But those are all the different methods are available. You also want to determine, besides what methods are you going to use, what will be those service levels or the expectations set for both you and your client. So example is, if a client reaches out to you and needs something, how soon can they expect a response? Is it immediately? Are you live chat with your clients? Chances are you're not. We'd never get any work done, right? Is it going to be maybe 4 to 6 hours, the same day, the next day? Make sure you kind of have that clarification. And then how soon do you expect responses from your clients? And the response may not always be the answer, but at least it's an acknowledgement that they are looking into it. Now, why is it so important to have a communication strategy? Well, first of all, again, we set those kind of expectations, but we also want to make sure that everybody is on the same page. So, and we also want to minimize confusion, so eliminate confusion. So everybody on the same page, eliminating confusion, and setting those realistic expectations. And security is one of the things I didn't really touch on, and I hope it's important in your firm. I know that in my firm, we always try to make sure that we communicate any sensitive information securely. Our clients, not necessarily always. I don't think anything of, hey, I'm going to put a W-2 and attach it to an email. But I think it's our responsibility as the professionals to go ahead and remind them or give them a way to securely transmit that information. So, it's funny because I don't see a lot of accountants or bookkeepers that, set this up in advance. And I think the reason is they're afraid, whether it's a new client, we want to do anything that we can to get that new client using us as a service provider. So, hey, any way you want to communicate with me is good. And that really shouldn't be the way that we want to handle things. Because think about it, any other service provider that client goes to, it could be an attorney, a physician, another, a app partner, Intuit, or one of the other apps that they might use. They can't just choose any way they want to communicate with those people. They have communication strategies. They say you can only communicate with us by chat or by phone or by email, and they set those service level expectations right up front. We are professionals. Guess what? We are professionals, whether you're a bookkeeper, and don't tell me you're just a bookkeeper, because you're not just a bookkeeper, you're a bookkeeper. Damn it, sorry. I have to get back to that one, because so many times I hear people tell me, I'm not a CPA, I'm just a bookkeeper. And just a bookkeeper is not a profession. A bookkeeper is a profession. So as a bookkeeper or a CPA or an accountant, or maybe you're just a consultant. I shouldn't say that. Not just a consultant. You're a consultant. You're not just anything. You are what you are, and you're a professional doing your work. So as a professional, you want to come across to your clients. They are looking to you to guide them, and not just service them, but service them and guide them to the right way to manage things. The other reason that you want to set a realistic or really good communication strategy, as I mentioned, getting everybody on the same page, so that, in the event you ever have to look back at, hey, where did that communication come in from? Hey, I know she sent me that information. Was it by text? Was it by email? Was it by phone? Did that person send it to me? Did they send it to somebody else on my team? That can turn into an absolute nightmare. And I know there's somebody on the chat here. So a few years ago, I actually got subpoenaed for all of my communications with a person. It wasn't a client. It was one of my peers. And fortunately for me, most of our communications had been through email at that time. She wasn't a client, so that was okay. But the hours it took me to gather all of those communications for a subpoena, or whether we're just looking for information, it was a nightmare. It took so long. And so it was a waste of my time. The person that was waiting for the information had to wait on me. So think about those types of things. So let's dive in a little bit more. I'm going to talk about communication strategy. I'm going to tell you how we do it in our firm with our clients. So first of all, this is part of the engagement. It's not an afterthought, and it's very clear and it's very concise, and we address it right up front with our clients. We actually address it before the engagement letter even goes out. So when I talk to people at the very beginning, I do let them know that we, of course, in my firm, we use Client Hub. So I let them know that we use a client portal. And the important thing is that I let them know why. And it has to be about the client. It can't be about me. So I have to let them know that it's going to make it easy for them to connect with us. They're going to be connecting, and they're going to get assistance from a team of individuals, not just one person. Because, if it were just one person, if it were email and it comes to me and I'm doing this live event, or I'm at a conference or on a meeting or training or out for the day, I might not see that email and I may not reply for whatever time, who knows, till I see it tomorrow or maybe Monday at this point. Whereas if they're connecting with me as a team, if I'm not available, somebody else on my team can see that communication. So that's why we use kind of that one channel for communications. I probably jumped back that a little bit. And then what we do let them know is all communications come through that one channel. It's going to be their Client Hub portal. So if they send us email, we respond to that email within Client Hub. We want to make sure that we're not supporting the bad behavior of them going back to the old way. But remember, we're setting that up front. So we're letting the client know that it's about connecting with our team. It's about having a single source for everything the client needs with us. It's going to be the communication, the list of tasks, so the things that we're asking from them. It's going to be where they can access their files. Files are going to be file sharing, or file storage is also part of your communication strategy, because you need to communicate information, and you're going to do that through files and reports. It could be giving them access to the things like their resources. So we select the single channel. We also let them know it's a secure way for the transmission of information, which I think makes clients feel pretty good. So that's at the very beginning when we're engaging with a brand new client. We have those conversations, we get the engagement letter signed, and then we let them know, after you sign the engagement letter, we're going to send you an invitation to the portal. And then we make sure that, when they get in there, there's a little bit of information. If those of you that are Client Hub users, you know that I have my sample new client workspace. If you're not familiar with that, check out in our Get Help section. I believe it's under Tips and Tricks, or it's under the Accountant Resources, but check that out. So kind of a way to set it up so that it's a good experience for the client right out of the gate. So we set that expectation up front. So we set the expectation out. Here is how we will communicate. The next thing we do is we talk about those expectations. So if a client does ask us or send us a request for something, we let them know that they will normally get a response that same business day, or it may be, if it's later on in the day, it could be early the next day. But we really try to at least acknowledge that they sent us a request for something, or they sent us some type of message. And, again, it's really great that because we're using a single channel, it's a shared communication platform. There have been many times where Jackie, who handles all of our payroll, she doesn't work on Fridays. Who does payroll on Fridays, right? She doesn't work on Fridays. So what will happen is I'll see clients will send things like, I have a new employee, or they want to change something for their upcoming payroll the following week. And I can see that, and I can just pop right into Client Hub and acknowledge that message from them and remind them, hey, Jackie's not off on Fridays, but she'll get back to you on Monday. So again, kind of being able to jump in there and give that client a peace of mind. So we do set those expectations. Now we also do it on the other side. So we let our clients know what we expect from them. If I request information from you, we kind of schedule our work. So we normally service our clients 1 to 2 times a week, depending on the size of the client. And we just let them know that we want to have answers or responses to our question by the next time we're going to do their work. So if we serve the client on a Wednesday, if we provide their work, they need to have the answers to any questions we push out by the following Wednesday, or the request for information. So we're going to need it next time we do your work. Same thing if it's a client that we're working on twice a week. We might go ahead and let them know that, if we ask you for it on Tuesday, we need the answer by Thursday or Friday, whatever day we're doing your work. And, I think that what I don't do is when my clients don't respond as we expected, I'm not afraid to pick up the phone and call them. It's funny. So, I'll talk to a lot of accountants, and they'll get really upset because their clients don't respond to them. And it doesn't matter if they're using email or text. Hey, I've sent my client, I've asked them for this, they're not responding. Pick up the phone, call them, let them know. My clients usually know if I pick up the phone and call them, they better answer the phone because I'm calling them for something important. But, don't be afraid to communicate with your clients and find out why. The reason they might have a really good reason for not responding that you're not aware of. So don't hold it in. Don't just accept it. Sorry, I should say that. Don't just accept that it's okay that they're not responding. Pick up the phone, have a conversation with them, let them know what's going on. And you know what? Maybe you'll find out that Wednesday doesn't work for that client. Processing their work or getting the answers to them by Wednesday, it just doesn't work. Thursday works better for them. Have those communications, do what you need to do to kind of pivot. What you don't want to do is accept your client saying, hey, your communication channel doesn't work for me. I want to send you emails, or I want to fax to you, or I want to send you text messages. Don't let your client demand a change in the channel that you use. But be available to kind of be flexible to try to fit into their schedule. Another couple things that you can think about is, talking to your clients and explaining to them, of course, remember, you want to tell them why this is best for them. But oftentimes, if they understand the struggles that you have within your firm, and then they're more apt to be understanding and comply with your requests for your new communication strategy. So, explain to them, hey, I've got a staff of 5. We serve 50 clients. And if all 50 clients communicated with us through text messaging and email and phone and fax, that's, 5 times 50 times 4. I can't do the math real fast right there. It's a lot. Anybody, go ahead, post me a message and see if you can do that. But then think about, again, you're looking back and you're talking about your work, and you're trying to remember, where did that response come in from a client? By the way, we had that one day, and I want to talk about exceptions to the rule because that's important. Sometimes email is necessary, and you need to also make sure that you clarify up front what an exception is to your communication strategy. And when those exceptions are acceptable, I can't say that, sorry. So think about urgent things. So let's say a client loses internet, they have an emergency payroll issue, or maybe they didn't lose internet, but they have an emergency payroll issue. They posted a message through email, text, chat, Client Hub, and they haven't gotten a response from you. Maybe they're going to pick up the phone. So maybe your strategy would say, in the event of an emergency or an urgent issue, pick up the phone and call me. Or it's okay to send an email for an urgent issue. Although I never say email, because email just, again, it's the worst, absolute worst. Mine isn't, because I use Client Hub, but it used to be. So think about that, what if an urgent issue comes upon, and how should the client contact you, and where should they contact you, or who should they contact on your team? Should they contact you, a member of your team? And then you need to determine what is urgent, because urgent to you and I could be really different than urgent to your client. So, hey, I forgot to add my new employee to payroll, and they're not going to get paid today because I forgot to do that. Can you help me out? That's urgent. I need a copy of the P&L because I can't find the one that you sent me last month. That's not urgent. You know what? You should have known where your P&L was. You should have saved it to the right place. That's not urgent. So make sure you define to your client what an urgent issue is. Now, I also want to talk about point of contact. That's another critical part of your communication strategy, because thinking about back again in the good old days of email, that's funny. I never thought I'd say that, but it feels really good to say that because they are I guess some of them were the good old days. But there were times when, and I know many of you have heard this story, where I had a client and the bookkeeper sent something to the client, and the client, didn't respond, and the bookkeeper reminded the client and she still didn't respond. And the bookkeeper sent another reminder, and the client picked up the phone and called me screaming for a new bookkeeper. Now that's because it was a one-to-one conversation. And we want to make sure that for us, that our conversations are kind of open, that I need to have visibility into what's going on with all client communications. I don't need to be the one communicating, and I certainly don't want to get copied on every single email that goes out from everybody in my team, which again is kind of the idea about Client Hub, is to have the ability to see what's going on really easily without having to go through a bunch of emails, and know when things might potentially be escalating. And also you want to make sure it's something that you can easily look back if you need to. So that situation, of course, the client calling me yelling that the bookkeeper's harassing her for the same information time and time again. When I look back and went through the emails with the bookkeeper, it wasn't harassment. It was that the client wasn't responding to the needs of the bookkeeper. And so the bookkeeper had to keep sending those reminders. So, I had to go back to the client and say, my bookkeeper wasn't harassing you, but we wasted a lot of time looking back through that whole email thread of what was going on. And I had to wait a couple of days because that all transpired on a Friday. I wasn't going to get a hold of my bookkeeper over the weekend. It wasn't, it's important, but I wasn't going to bother her on her days off. First thing Monday morning, she went through, she got the emails, again, wasted time. In the meanwhile, who knows what the client's doing over the weekend, maybe looking for a whole new bookkeeping company. But it just was a really bad situation. So now, again, having a group channel, then we have access, I have visibility into all those communications. But with that said, and I think I started kind of this thought about talking about a primary point of contact. So I feel really confident that whenever there's communications from a client, even though I have visibility, I can see it all, there's one person on my team that is responsible for the communications with that client. And if that member of the team, if I know if that person's gone to lunch or if they're off for the day, either myself or somebody else will become that primary point of contact for that period of time. But we also do it with the client. So I think I spoke with an accountant not too long ago, and she was talking about that she has a client and she has 5 people at the client location that she has to gather information from. I thought, oh my goodness, that's got to be tough, because I think it makes so much sense with communication and gathering of information, when possible, to have that single person that's your point of contact. So that's what we do with our clients, that I'm not going to communicate with every department manager in your organization. I need to have a single point of contact at my clients. And, that person is the one that's going to be responsible for getting answers from all those department managers. That way, because the other thing that's happened, and I've had this happen in past jobs too, where you get an email and somebody, an email or a message, and somebody says, hey, we need a copy of XYZ. And everybody that's copied on that email thinks somebody else copied on that email is going to respond. So nobody responds. Or worst case scenario, we really waste our efforts and everybody responds, but now you've got 5 different responses and maybe there are 5 different responses and you got to figure out which one is the right one. So having that primary point of contact, that person on our end and the person on that end. The other thing, it really helps to develop a really good relationship. So, that primary point of contact becomes the relationship manager within that client. And I don't know about you, but I like it, whether it be my doctors or the bank, wherever I go, my financial advisor, having that one person that is kind of your person there that and is the person that you can turn to. I think at my veterinarian's office. So, there are people there that I know are really, really great. I love to communicate with, and they're going to help me out when I have a sick pet, where others not necessarily. So, know who your person is. Make sure your clients know who their person is. Make those introductions. But we also want to go ahead and document our communication strategy. I think that's really important because there have been many times where, we'll go through that at the beginning. It gets added into the engagement. And then suddenly, for some reason, the client stops doing what you kind of expected of them. They all of a sudden, for some reason, they're doing great sending messages through Client Hub, and then they start text messaging you. I had a client once. She was great. She's West Coast. I'm East Coast. We've known each other for a long, long time. So we had a great relationship, but she would do all of her bookkeeping on Friday nights. And if she needed something, she would post a message in her Client Hub workspace. And every once in a while, if she would do that, then she would send me an email or text message. Like if I didn't respond immediately, I guess I don't know, for some reason, she thought it was a live chat. So I would have to go back to her and I would have a written document. And my written document clearly defines what our communication strategy is. Remember what that service level is. How soon will we respond? What's an urgent matter? How do we handle urgent matters? And so going back and trying to reinforce that information with the client. So what we started doing, 2 things that go into every Client Hub workspace in the resource area. One of those is the client, what do we call it? The timeline of work. I think that's what we call the document. It just basically says, here's the day we do your work. Here's the work that we do. Here's when you have to have specific pieces of information. So we let them know the dates, kind of those due dates of all that information. And then the other thing is that kind of communication strategy, the expectations of it. So that if clients are not responding, they're using different channels, we go ahead and we refer them back to that resource and let them know. So, make sure that you're upfront with your clients on how you do this, and make sure your team members are on board. I think I left that part out. So the thing about it is we can only expect our clients to follow our lead. So if for some reason a client sends an email to somebody on my team and that team member gets lazy, gets forgetful, whatever, it just wants to make it really easy, and now they communicate back, they respond back to that client through email, what have we done here? We've said it's okay to use email, and we can't do that. So we have to make sure that everybody is on the same page, everybody on our team. So making sure that they know how to respond if a client does send an email. The other thing, by the way, I'm kind of picking on email here. I do like the telephone, but the other thing that we make sure that we do is we don't let clients make requests of us verbally. We always want to request in writing. And I want to make it easy for clients. So sometimes what we'll do is if it's a phone call about maybe they want us to change something in the chart of accounts or add a new bank account or give somebody a raise, right? So we'll just go back to Client Hub or whatever communication strategy you're using, and just make note of everything that you discussed on that phone call, and go ahead and create a message and say, just, wanted to, provide a bullet points of what we covered in our phone call. Because now that you've got it there in writing, it's really clear for your clients. And there's no confusion later on down the road about what was said on the phone call, because if you perceived it differently than the way your client meant it and you put it down there in writing, hopefully they'll catch it. And if they don't catch it, shame on them, right? So there can be shame on your clients. Another way of communicating, which I kind of didn't touch on this one either, is sometimes we need to gather information from our clients, or our clients need to send us information, and they're not always consistent with providing everything that we need. And here's the example. I had a client, she's a property management company. She's a realtor, but she does some property management. And they would have tenants that would move in and out of the properties. And every time they would have a tenant move in, they would send us a message with half of the information we needed. They were never consistent about providing us everything. So another really great form of communication is forms, right? A form of forms. So think about if there's information like that that we need to collect on a regular basis, whether it's for a new employee or a new tenant, or a change in employment, like maybe somebody's going to get that raise, or they're adding on their retirement or health insurance or whatever. They're moving from hourly to salary. Oh, I couldn't say that word good. But think about using a forms program. So you can use a Google form. We use JotForm. So remember, for that client with the property management, we just created a really simple JotForm that she could just go in and fill out, and she had all the required forms, which was all the information that we required. We added a note section, an optional note section. The other thing that we would do at the very bottom is we ask the client to verify that the information is correct and acknowledge that, we're going to use that information. So if it was a new employee and they gave us a wrong social security number or wrong bank account information, then, it's on them. So we always have that information to look back on. So lots of great things I'm talking about. By the way, if you're using those forms, think about, and you're a Client Hub user, think about putting a link to those forms within the client's Client Hub workspace so they always have access to them. If not, just maybe let them know that they're going to have to add it as a shortcut on their bar. So I'm starting to wind down now. I do want to thank everybody that's here with me live today. If you do have any questions other than comments about the weather, but those are really good comments. And Cheryl, thank you for talking about how important it is to define in the engagement who the primary point of contact is, because so often we forget about these things. We're so focused on just the job or the work or the transactional part of it. We don't think about everything involved with that. And suddenly now we've got a client and the engagement is just not what we expected it to be. We're waiting on information and we're wading through different channels to get information. And we're kind of sitting there saying, should I take on this engagement? Maybe not. The other thing too, by the way, before I let you guys go, is the change of communication strategy with existing clients. I know that can be really scary. We don't want to go to our clients and say, hey, no more email, no more text. You've got to now go to this special place. Or even if it was, hey, you can't text me anymore, I only take email. So again, you need to plan for that. Number one, you need to give the client notice. You have to explain to them why you're making this change. And remember, the why always has to be about them. I'm giving you a secure way. I make it easier for you to connect with our team. There's other advantages to whatever this communication strategy is. Next time you're looking for information from me, you're going to know where it is because we're only communicating one way. So don't be afraid to move your existing clients to a new strategy. It's funny because there's so many benefits on both sides to having that clear strategy. Why would you not offer up that same benefit to your existing clients, right? Why would you only offer that great benefit to new clients coming on board? If I was one of your existing clients and I found out that your new clients were getting something better than me, I'd be really, really mad. And I think about that commercial. I think it's an AT&T commercial where the guy comes in and he's a new AT&T customer and he's going to get the best deal on the phone. And the other guy comes in and he's an existing customer and he wants the same great deal. So think about that, give them the same great deal. What you might want to do to make it easy for your clients is plan for a transition. Let them know when that will be effective. Let them know, that there's going to be a little bit of a transition period. Let them know, hey, if it goes effective on the 1st and on the 5th, you accidentally send me an email, it's okay. It's okay. We'll address it. But, as of the 15th of the month, no more email. And you guys will see if you're, again, in Client Hub and you look at our client onboarding game plan, I talk about creating that auto responder. I haven't done it for every client, but I do it for the clients that kind of have a hard time, using the new portal, using Client Hub. And so I've only had to do that with a handful of clients. I'm grateful for that. And most of those clients are no longer clients, by the way, because they really had a hard time with that. But that's okay that I let them go, because I can't let one client kind of drag me down, one or two clients drag me down when we have to have a really clear strategy here. So think about those things, the benefits of it for both you and your client, and look at how clients are communicating with you now. Is it a good fit for your firm? And I love Client Hub. I have to love Client Hub. I think if I say I don't, I'll get in trouble. But I absolutely do. And it's made such a significant impact. But you know what? If you say, hey, we're going to adopt Slack in our firm for communication with clients, that's fine. As long as that's what you want to use, as long as it's easy, it's secure, your clients are going to adopt it. I mean, if you decide, I always make this joke, if you decide smoke signals are the best way to go for your firm, have at it. But again, stick with it. Don't abandon it, and make sure that it's going to fit in for you. So thanks everybody for listening to me today. Thank you for those of you that have joined us and those that are posting comments. I appreciate that. For those of you that are watching us record it, I hope you've found some great information here. I do want to let you know that if you are a Client Hub user, we've got some great resources to help you on this. If you are not a Client Hub user, I'm going to go ahead afterwards. I'm going to post a link to a resource guide. I've got a resource guide here about kind of being a client-focused firm. It's got some information in there about, creating your own communication strategy and why it's important. And don't hesitate to reach out to me. You can connect with me here on Facebook. You can send me an email. I'll go ahead and post that email information right there in the message section. Again, I can't talk at the same time. But I do ask you to join me in 2 weeks. That's going to be April 30th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to talk with April Miller from $10, I think it's $10 Bookkeeping. I hope I got that right, April. I think you're watching. So we're going to be talking with April, and she's fairly new to Client Hub, but she's not really going to be talking about Client Hub. She's going to be talking about, she recently set out on a quest to look for the right solution for her firm. And she's going to talk about what that process looked like and some of the things that she was really looking for and how she put together her list of, what's really important, her A/B list, what's important, what's nice to have, but not really important, and what things are on the wish list, and how she did those evaluations. So again, April 30th at 1 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to have April from Sand Dollar Bookkeeping. I believe I'll have to look at that. I hope I got that right. April. Also want to, from last week, 2 weeks ago, thanks Cheryl Willette for joining us. If you would like to be a guest on our Friday Live, please go ahead and send me a message here or send me an email. We would love to have you. By the way, you do not have to be a Client Hub user, preferably somebody in the accounting or bookkeeping profession that can help us talk about topics that are really important to folks in our profession. So thank you. For those of you up in the Northeast, Jonathan, stay warm. Don't shovel too much snow. For those of you here in Florida, watch out for the sun. I hope you don't get a sunburn. I hope you all have a fabulous weekend, and I'll see you again in 2 weeks. Take care. Bye-bye.